Hi, folks. My name is Kyle Holder. I'm a customer success manager with Spark. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is the Spark 7.8 release overview. A couple reminders. The release itself is going to be taking place this weekend, Saturday evening, 9 p.m. Central is when it's going to start. And questions that come up through the course of the webinar, you can go ahead and pop into that question and answer box, and we will cover those at the end of the webinar. All right, so we're going to get started. Here's our agenda for the day. We're going to start out with what's been fixed in 7.8. We'll talk about what's changed. We're going to give an overview of what's new, and the majority of that time is going to be spent on some improvements that we've made to the information request process. Tanner's going to give us a demo of some of the big new features, and then we will have time for questions at the end. So let's start with some fixes in 7.8. So first, the export page is going to appear as expected when you export a package to LaserPro NLS DEA. Various issues have been resolved that have occurred when copying a package, especially when you're copying across different products. You may have seen issues with the package team, with some of the figures in the package not copying correctly. So those have been addressed. Spark now applies the SBA location ID rather than the FERS ID in SBA Form 159. Error handling has been improved when you're analyzing password-protected PDF files. So in the past, if you've used the document analysis feature and a PDF file was password-protected, that might not have been clear. So we've improved how we handle those situations. And we've also made improvements to two-factor authentication if your instance uses it when the text messaging provider is down. So maybe something you haven't seen before, but now hopefully something you won't see in the future either. Okay, shifting to what's changed in 7.8. First, we've made various improvements across Spark in terms of inputting and saving data. So some of these examples are the business age field now includes a third option, which is a new business. That's in addition to the existing business and startup business options. So we made that change to align more closely with how the SBA stores that data. The address lookup function across all address fields has been improved. So it now includes both USPS mailing addresses and over 15 million non-postal addresses. So if you've ever had an issue finding an exact address, hopefully that will be ameliorated there. The personal financial statement now allows you to document details about an individual's IRA or other retirement account. And again, that was a change made to more closely align with SBA recommendations. And Spark users can now select multiple races in demographic information. So instead of a drop-down menu, that's now a multiple selection checkbox. You may have run into this in the past. If you copy and paste images into any rich text field in Spark, Spark is now going to give you a warning if it's over the maximum image size, which is 200 KB. So previously, if you pasted an image into one of those fields and it was larger than that, it may have caused the page to hang. It took a while to load. So now you'll be sort of alerted if you're copying and pasting an image that's larger than that limit into those fields. And lastly, Spark no longer automatically calculates the payment amount in a debt schedule. There are cases where that payment amount that was being calculated didn't account for other factors and it was being manually changed anyway. So now it'll always be a manual entry. All right, and then a few changes to the Spark navigation. You can include SBA submission date as a column in any package dashboard. The PPP navigation item won't be visible if your instance does not use or does not have an active PPP product. And non-DocuSign users, that is anyone in Spark who's not signed into a DocuSign account, can now view electronic signature envelopes for a package. So they still won't be able to interact with them, obviously won't be able to send envelopes, but they will be able to see if envelopes have been sent and when. Couple changes to partner users. So if you use partner users, you can now assign internal information requests to them, and they can complete internal information requests that have been assigned to them. And further, in any document listing, partner user can now download all of the documents to a zip file. We've added a couple new things to some Spark generated documents. So in dynamic PDF forms, which would be things like commitment letters, letters of interest, you can now include a pre-screen risk rating and an underwriting risk rating section. And also the debt schedule section that you might see in a pre-screen or credit memo now includes totals for original balance, current balance, and payment. A quick change to disbursement completed notifications, you can now include the name of the lender in either the subject or the body, or both of that notification. If you create or manage information requests internally, we've removed the workflow instructions because those actually never appeared to an applicant. You can still enter instructions for the information request as a whole or for individual activities, but we took out that field. It wasn't being surfaced anywhere. We did update SBA Form 1086 to align with recent changes made by the SBA. And our last change, a couple improvements to our API data. The collateral API endpoint now includes package ID, and the contact packages API endpoint now shows packages for an external contact instead of lender contact. So now transitioning, what's new? We're going to start with some various things and get to the information requests. So first, we've made SOFR index rates available. This actually is already included in Spark. It's not a part of the 7.8 release. We wanted everyone to be aware, though, if you plan on using the SOFR index or the SOFR 30-day average, those are available within Spark. They just need to be turned on for any product you expect to use those for. So contact your customer success manager, and we can help you get that turned on. Another change, we've allowed Spark users to now manage their subscriptions to Spark product updates. Previously, we were managing this on our end with our email service, but now you have control over what Spark product updates you see. So this can be managed individually, and it can also be managed at an organization level by Spark people who have Spark configuration permissions. We've introduced a preferred name field as well. So this applies to all Spark users. You can now include a preferred name that would appear in various places instead of that person's legal first name. So these would appear in places like notifications, internal Spark screens, dynamic forms, basically anything that's not an SBA form or official kind of correspondence of record. So this would allow you to, send notifications to Chuck rather than Charles. This is an exciting one. You can now view the applicant portal. So you can see Spark as your applicant sees Spark in various places. And this includes the information request. So if you get questions occasionally about, I'm not sure what to enter here, I'm not sure what to click, this would allow you to sort of assume their perspective and hopefully, provide a little more information about what needs to be done. Maybe save you a screen share or some screenshots back and forth. And now we're going to transition into information requests. So we've made some significant improvements to the look and feel of information requests. And we've also added some new functionality. And we think that altogether, these things are going to make information requests smoother. They're going to make them faster, hopefully more effective. So starting out, we've improved just the look of information requests for the applicant. So now on every screen, it's going to be more apparent kind of what deserves their attention at that moment. So within an information request, they'll always see a breakdown of workflows and activities to be completed on the left side of the page. In the middle of the page is going to be the current activity. And then on the right, you've got your instructions, which are customizable. In addition to kind of just the visual changes, we've added a lot of stuff that should make the process smoother. One of these things is a new workflow type, which we called initial setup. So this is a workflow that if you choose to include it in an information request, the applicant will be required to complete this initial setup workflow before they advance to any additional workflows that are in the information request. So this has a couple really nice benefits. The first one is it allows you to collect important information right up front. So there are going to be times when you send an information request when you don't have all the details. Business ownership is a good example. You might not have a full picture of the complete ownership of a business. If you choose to include that business ownership activity in that initial setup workflow, that's going to allow you to collect that information right up front. The applicant really can't contribute any other information until they complete this workflow. The other big benefit is that this also allows the information request to almost learn, to become smarter. So as they complete the business ownership activity, that can trigger changes to that same information request down the line. So for example, if they enter an owner that you weren't aware of that hadn't been included on the package to that point, that would then trigger another workflow to collect information about that owner. So instead of having to send a separate information request, maybe at a later time, once you've reviewed this first one, now the information request itself is going to know, okay, now we need to collect this additional information as well. So in conjunction with that, we've added another optional feature. You can now mark an information request owner. So that's somebody who's been assigned to the information request. And what that allows them to do is invite other external users into the information request to provide information, provide documentation, and so on. That is a configurable feature, meaning it's going to require you to make that configuration change on the information request itself. And then in addition to that, on each workflow, there's now a clear indication of who's been assigned. So if user A is assigned an information request, let's say it's the business information workflow that they're looking at, they can now see if user 2 is also assigned to that workflow. So hopefully it'll help them coordinate, avoid duplicate entry, should make things go a little smoother. All right, and then there are some changes to the experience itself beyond sort of the visual changes. One of those things is progress is automatically saved as your applicants move through an information request. So we've saved them a few clicks here, not so many save buttons as they go through the process. Instead, that's going to be saved automatically. Another change we made is when an applicant has supplied all the information that they can for an activity, they can mark it as complete. So what I mean by this is, for certain activities in an information request, there's no way for Spark to know when all the information has been documented. Business debt schedule is a good example. Spark is expecting the applicant to enter something, but if a business has no outstanding debt, there's no way, or at least there was no way previously for Spark to know that. So now we've made it possible for the applicant to mark that activity as complete and say, yes, I didn't enter anything, or maybe I didn't enter something you were looking for, but it is complete. Another change we made, for all activities, you can now include an estimate of the amount of time it will take to complete. So by default, we have some values entered based on conversations with you all, based on internal conversations. We've assigned each activity a default sort of time estimate. You can change those in Spark configuration. Okay, in addition to that, we've improved progress tracking within an information request. So applicants can now clearly see what work has been done and what work is left to do. And that goes for an information request as a whole, as well as the workflows and even individual activities within a workflow. They all provide some indication of how complete or incomplete that thing is. Okay, so I bet you probably have some questions about, okay, how does this apply, or how is this going to affect existing information requests, active information requests? So here's how the rollout's going to happen. When an existing Spark user logs into Spark for the first time after the release, they'll see a welcome banner that's going to outline some of the major changes to information requests. If they have an information request that's in progress, all of the information they've entered so far will be saved. They can pick up right where they left off. It will just assume the new look and feel of information requests with Spark 7.8. The only kind of thing to keep in mind is that anything that they have in progress, so activities and workflows that they have started but not completed, are going to show as 50% complete until they resume their work. At that point, it'll update to a more accurate completion percentage. So this is just a quick summary of, there's quite a few changes in this release. Some of them require configuration. Some of them have some optional configuration. So just as a quick summary of that, if you want to use these features, you're going to need to configure something. So reach out to your customer success manager, and we can help you get set up if you want to use SOFR index rates. If you want to add a scorecard or risk rating section to your dynamic forms, if you want to utilize that initial setup workflow, we can help you add that and include the activities that you think you want to include there. And if you want to enable information request owners, which again allows somebody who's been assigned to an information request to invite additional external users. Okay, so in addition to that, there are some things that have optional configuration. If you want to manage Spark product update subscriptions for your entire organization, that's something that you can do in Spark configuration. Otherwise, people can manage those individually from their user profile. If you want to add that lender name tag to a disbursement completed notification. And lastly, if you wanted to change any of those default information request time estimates. I bet you have other questions, especially about the information requests. I think Tanner's going to answer a lot of them with a demo. So I'm going to kick it over to Tanner, and he'll take you through some of these new features.
Great. Thanks, Kyle. I'm going to share my screen. And Kyle, can you confirm for me that we've got Spark up on my screen here?
Looks good, Tanner. Couldn't find the unmute.
Perfect. Thanks. All right, so we're going to dive now into the demo for the release for 7.8. We're going to cover more of the minor items first before diving to those and we will get to it as soon as the demo wraps, and we should have plenty of time to answer any questions. So the first thing I want to show is what Kyle had pointed out, is that from my profile and settings, we can manage notifications that are coming from Spark related to product updates, exactly like the invitation.
Hang tight, folks. I think we got just a little audio issue. Should be just a second.
All right, I think I'm back with audio.
Sounds good, Tanner.
Thanks for the heads up, Kinfei. Unfortunately, I believe my wife just jumped on a video call, so we'll cross our fingers with the internet here, but please let me know if I do break up. All right, back to sharing our screen. Screen's back up, Kyle?
Yes, sir.
All right, so as I was saying, that if we access my profile and settings in the top right, which is again where you can update a photo if you'd like to, which would be shared only internally, wouldn't be shared externally with your customers. We can navigate to notifications, and we can go ahead and manage any updates from Spark, which would be inclusive of the product update email that we sent out last week, as well as the release notes and the invitation to this webinar. And so there's going to be a number of different types of updates that you can opt in or opt out of. And any new employees that you have at your organizations, anyone that we add as a Spark user, we're going to opt them into all of these notifications. And it would just be good to let them know that they can opt out of them if that's appropriate. So returning to our dashboards, Kyle had also pointed out that we have updated a new column that we can add to any package list that we would find at the bottom of your dashboard. So under Edit Columns, we could then select SBA submission date, and I can move that around to be wherever I find it appropriate on my dashboard. I know that we've got a couple of suggestions for additional columns to add. If anyone has ideas for suggestions, please do send those over to me, to your customer success manager, or to support, and we'd love to hear those ideas. All right, moving into some of the other changes that we've made in Spark. If we navigate to a business and edit that business, we do now have the ability to describe a business as either a startup, a new business, or an existing business. This is going to be most helpful to when we're populating SBA Form 1920, as there are 3 options on that form, and previously in Spark, it would just be the 2, startup versus existing. And so we're trying to minimize, to the extent that we can, any manual adjustment to that form. And again, if you have any suggestions or we're not aware of anything that you are having to manually edit, always please keep us aware of that, especially on SBA forms. If I then move over to individuals, Kyle touched on this as well, but we'll jump in and edit this individual. That we do now have the idea of a preferred name. So we can keep a legal name and populate that on anything like a note or any other legal documents. But if we have something like a letter of interest, or we just want to allow our applicant to let us know what they would like to go by in a phone call or something, they can provide a preferred name. If I scroll down a bit, they also do have, we now have the ability to select multiple races for our applicants if that's how they identify. This is something that previously wasn't possible to submit to eTran. It now is possible, and so we've made that update in Spark as well. Moving on to our debt schedule. If I were to go into a debt schedule and add a new item, so if we just add any existing debt, we'll call it an installment loan fixed rate. And if we provide a term and rate, this used to automatically calculate. We are now going to require that to be manually entered on the payment, as this was a little confusing, as it would only be accurate if we were looking at a fully amortizing loan. We didn't have any balloon payments or anything like that. And so we're going to require anyone that's filling out a debt schedule, whether it be on the lender side or the applicant side, to manually fill out that payment. All right, one other thing that Kyle talked about was copying packages, making that a little bit better. And specifically what we're saying is if we are copying an existing loan and we're trying to make a different loan, we might be assigning different team members. We might be assigning a whole different pool of people depending on what product we're moving to. And so if we go ahead and copy this package, which is an SBA 7A loan, and I've already assigned a number of people to various roles, we are now going to look to the team configuration for that new product and let you start from scratch, so you don't have to unassign a whole bunch of people if the team configurations didn't match one another. So if I scroll down to the bottom and look at my team, we got rid of everybody that was assigned to that previous loan. And now we can start from scratch. And we also don't have all of those unnecessary roles that would have been specific to the SBA loan. All right, so moving on to information requests. This is going to be the bulk of the changes that we've made in this release. And most of it is going to be focusing on how our applicants are actually interacting with information requests, trying to make it as smooth of a process as possible, thereby making all of our lenders' lives as smooth as possible. All right, so I'm going to go into an information request that I have already kicked off and just talk through exactly what changes have occurred. On our first tab on configure, we haven't really made many changes, but I do want to call out that we do now have the ability to set up an initial workflow. If we opt to include this, this is going to be required to be the first workflow that our applicant works through. I'm going to show exactly what that means, but that's really going to be valuable when we're defining business ownership. Today, we would have to define business ownership and add in any individuals or corporate entities that own our borrowing business, and then invite those owners into Spark as an internal user. And what we are now making possible, if I move on to our Assign tab, having the concept of a request owner, and this could be someone who's actually working with the business on one of the owners or someone working on behalf of the business owner, who can take on that responsibility from the lender. They can document the business ownership, and they can then invite those owners into Spark to work through that information request, taking some of that data entry off of our lender's plates. And again, we'll show exactly what that looks like here in a bit. And so what we've got set up is one business with one individual, and we are going to assign that initial workflow to Gregory. All right, so I have already sent this. It's already active. And so one other change that we have called out is our notifications. When we send off an information request to our applicants, we're going to kick off notifications. And we have made our notifications just a little bit better. The thing that I want to call it on this one specifically is when we assign an information request to somebody, we're going to tell them a little bit more. What is an information request? And what exactly are we asking them to do? These are always going to be configurable per environment. And so if you have any questions or if you'd like to review any externally facing notifications, feel free to reach out to your customer success manager, customersuccess@lendwithspark.com, or just reach out to me directly. We will be applying the change to this specific information request where we are telling exactly which workflows the recipient of this notification is assigned to. Any other changes, we will work with you, and you'd have to opt into those changes. And the same thing for the initial workflow, which I'm about to show from the applicant perspective. That would be something that you'd have to opt into. We'll be reaching out in the next couple of weeks just to make sure that we aren't forgetting about these decisions, but we will require people to opt into that in order to change that process. So jumping back to Spark, one thing that we've heard often is it would be easier for me to support my customers if I could see what they see. And so as of this new release, if we go to Actions and view as applicant, I can then see exactly what they see once they click into the information request. So on the left, I'm viewing this as a lender, and viewing it on the right, I'm viewing it as an applicant. And these are going to mirror each other. As soon as any changes are made on behalf of the applicant, if I were to refresh that as the lender, those changes would be reflected immediately. Now we're hopeful that the updated workflows and the changes that we've made to the user interface will minimize the amount that we have to troubleshoot and help our customers fill out these information requests. However, when we do have to do that, we want to make it as easy as possible. So now we've allowed you to see exactly what they see. So maximizing my screen now, I've transitioned over and I am viewing Spark as the applicant. And I want to go through what this initial workflow entails. This initial workflow can be customized to include any number of activities. We would always encourage that it includes at least this business ownership activity, which we're going to show last. We do currently support a use of funds activity where we could allow an applicant to let us know that they might be changing their uses of funds. Or in this case, I've requested $10,000 over the loan amount that was entered by the lender to let them know that you know what, I actually do need inventory as well. If this isn't something that you're interested in using, not required, but it's something that we did change and wanted to show. Similarly, we can allow someone to document collateral. They could at least give you an idea of what collateral is available on this transaction. Again, this isn't required to add to this initial workflow, but we have changed it. It's now much simpler to document collateral. So we are simply going to say we're documenting residential real estate and just an initial valuation, which can obviously be changed by the lender at any time. So once I've documented all of my collateral, I can move on. And so now we've assigned business ownership to Gregory, and we can say he needs to tell us about the ownership of our borrowing business. We'd say that he could add himself as an owner, or he can actually start to create new individuals in Spark, so I don't have to do it as the lender. So once we've documented 100% of ownership, we can move on. This could also include a corporate entity as well. They could create a new business if we had a corporate entity that was owning, that was an owner of this business. So at any point we can save and exit. We don't have to complete all of this in one go, but I am going to go through and show that our business information has changed just a little bit as well. And I shouldn't say a little bit, it's changed pretty drastically, especially from the look and feel. The information that we're collecting is still going to be the same, but we've tried to make this a little bit easier on our applicants to understand exactly what we are requesting of them. So we're going to show on all these cards any information that we've documented as the lender. They can scroll down and move through this one at a time to provide us similar information on each screen, and try to keep the screens a little less noisy, whereas this was all on one very long screen that we had to continue scrolling through previously. So again, all of the information that we're capturing is going to be the same as we're capturing today. It's just going to look a little bit different. I'm not going to click through all of these. Instead, I am going to jump over to our business documentation and show that that looks a little bit different now as well. And I'll call out that as I jump from one activity to the next, we can see a little bit of a progress bar, as well as a progress bar for the workflow as a whole. As we continue to complete items, we're going to show that progress bar continue to fill up. So I'll go ahead and just provide one document here. And so it's just a little bit more indicative of a blank placeholder versus something that's already been uploaded. We're also going to show the name of the file that, I accidentally uploaded a picture here and not my articles of organization. So hopefully we can minimize any unintentional errors of someone dragging and dropping the wrong file. So again, we are going to allow folks to mark this as complete without every single document that we're requesting, with the understanding that we can still reject this activity the same way that we do today. Personal information, again, is going to be collecting the same information that we are today. We're just going to make it a little bit easier for applicants to know exactly what we're requesting of them. So again, I can go through each of these. I've already filled this out, so you have to watch me do a bunch of data entry. And because this is largely the same, I'm not going to go ahead and click through every single one of these, and I will go ahead and save and exit, and we can come back to this later. All right, so now that I've updated our ownership, I can see on the right that we actually have new workflows because we documented that they are owners of the business, that they now have workflows that they will need to complete. And so I, as the owner of this information request, I can go ahead and provide that email. And invite Kendall directly to Spark. And so we don't have to have that interaction with the lender, with the BDO. And now Kendall can start working through any workflow that's assigned to them. And same thing with anyone that we've documented. And so hopefully that will be just a little bit easier to get some of that information into Spark, especially when it's the first time that we're working with a new business. If it's something that we haven't done a previous loan, a previous lease before. Once I've completed all the activities in an initial workflow, I can submit that for review. And that's going to kick off the same workflow for an internal user, for the lender. We're going to get a notification, and I can go ahead and see that. And if I refresh, we can see that some of those activities have been completed. I can review any completed workflows. And I can reject any activity where we didn't get exactly what we were looking for, and we can still provide that message. So that they know exactly what they need to do in order to have that information request be accepted. So there's a lot there. One of the things I just want to reemphasize is this initial workflow. This is something that would require configuration change to your existing information requests. We're happy to make that change. We'll be reaching out to say, is this something that you would like to take advantage of? And if so, what would you like to ask for? Again, we would always recommend it is at least this business ownership activity that allows your applicants to provide the structure of the business and invite their colleagues to provide that information so that you don't have to. All right, let's move to chat and questions.
Yeah, so feel free to enter any questions in the question and answer box. We've got a few, I'll call out just a couple. So existing notifications, information request notifications, if you have custom content in those notifications, that will remain. So the new information that's available is not turned on by default. It won't override anything that, any configuration you've made previously. So that's something that you and we would need to configure if you wanted to take advantage of. And then one other question, can the client and lender be in the information request at the same time without overriding any saved progress? So we didn't really make a change to the functionality of who can access the information requests. Lenders internally could always access an in-progress information request. All we've added is the ability to view that information request as the applicant sees it. So the short answer is, nothing's changed necessarily, but the internal user can't make changes to the information request through that applicant view. So I guess you're safeguarded from overriding anything they've made progress on if you're in that applicant view. And then just keep in mind that once that applicant has submitted a workflow, it's locked on their end, so they can't make changes to that information as you and your team review it.
I also saw in the chat, can a lender easily remove an invite if a borrower makes us aware that they entered an incorrect email address? Yes. We haven't changed anything about our authorized user page. You can always navigate there and you could remove the invite from someone and try to update any email address manually. And then in the guarantor section under individual analysis, does the debt schedule populate into the personal financial statement? That remains the same as today. There is a personal financial statement activity. It is going to mirror the SBA Form for 13, and that's how we would populate the personal financial statement. So it's not the debt schedule necessarily. And what I was showing was a business debt schedule, but we can obviously populate a personal financial statement with that specific activity.
And then one more good question. If a borrower adds another user, an external user, to an information request, does that add that information to the package itself? Yes. So if they add an external user and they indicate that they should have access to the information request and that they're an owner, all of that information would flow into the package.
Yep, and I'm showing that here. These are the two new individuals that were created along with their email address. And then once they work through their information, this will continue to be updated without any intervention from the lender. Great question.
And okay, so do we have the option to have the debt payment calculate automatically? No, that's not a toggle. So as of this release, it will be manual entry. Okay, and we'll hold a few more minutes. If there are additional questions, feel free to type them. If you don't have any questions, we want to thank you for attending. Reminder that the release is going to be taking place this weekend on Saturday. So when you log in, on Monday morning, get some new features. Happy Valentine's Day from Spark. If you're going to take off, have a great day. If you do have questions, we'll stick around for a few minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Tanner, we've got a question about users that are added via an information request externally. How does that tie to DocuSign?
Sorry, I was on mute. I'm not sure I follow the question. How does that tie to DocuSign? They would be added it would be exactly the same as today once they've been added. So I'm not sure specifically what you're getting at, but think of it as you wouldn't have to do the data entry in order to get them into Spark to be someone that you can click as a signer. So from your perspective, it would be no different than today. It would just be a little bit easier. I hope that answered the question. If not, feel free to send a follow-up. Oh, will their email show up so you don't have to type it manually in DocuSign? It would be the same as if you had already entered their email. So yes, it will show up as long as they have an email address documented.
Keith, good question. He's asking, will there be any update videos listing these changes? If so, where will they be listed? I forgot to mention, we make these release calls, the recordings available soon after it closes. So you'll have access to this video, but the other great place to find this information, as Tanner is going there right now, is our product update page. So this is going to have our release notes with a breakdown of all the changes, all the fixes, everything new. You can find this in Spark by going to the question mark icon in the upper right, or I'm going to go ahead and type the link in the chat here also.
Also, Keith, we do have a video specifically about the applicant experience of working through an information request that's already been posted to YouTube. And as soon as the release is live, we can go ahead and send out an update and make that available on updates.lendwithspark.com as well.
Okay, one other question. Did you change the credit attestation form? Can you be a little more specific? Did we change it? Is there a...
The functionality, Kinfei, we did not. It might look just a little bit different. So it's been improved. And we can actually show that if you'd like. Let's do that.
The language will be the same. Yeah, it'll maintain whatever language you have set.
Yep. And so I'm looking at someone who's not Gregory here, but language will be exactly the same. Yes, we won't change that on you. It'll just be how it looks from the customer perspective. Yeah, you got it. Wouldn't do that to you.
And he says, I doubt it. All right, well, that seems like a good place to end the call.
All right, thank you, everyone.
If you have any additional questions, there is one more. Would these changes affect the automated package creation?
No, there wouldn't be any change to automated package creation.
Okay. If there are any further questions, you can direct those to support@lendwithspark.com. We'll be happy to follow up shortly. Thanks for attending, everyone. Have a good day.